Walk down a street in Sicily right now, and the physical reality of the heat hits you before the numbers do. But the numbers are staggering: 45 degrees Celsius, baking the pavement and forcing daily life to a grinding halt. This data map shows the geographic scope of the current crisis. Out of 854 European cities analyzed over a single 12-day window, nearly half experienced heat stress that broke historic records. Europe is currently heating at twice the global average. Since the start of this specific heat wave, health officials have recorded over 1,300 excess deaths directly tied to the extreme temperatures. When normal weather patterns collapse this aggressively, it creates a demand for an immediate explanation. We need to know exactly what is driving this localized crisis while it is still unfolding. For decades, whenever temperatures spiked, a familiar counterargument would emerge. Pundits and politicians would write off the heat as part of a natural cycle. Maybe it's the El Niño phenomenon, or perhaps it's simply a hotter-than-average summer. That skepticism thrived because of a historical limitation in climate science. Researchers previously hesitated to link any single ongoing storm or heat wave to global climate change, as doing so required years of retrospective data modeling to prove. This built-in scientific delay created a political loophole. Without real-time, definitive proof pointing to a specific cause, policymakers had a justification to avoid taking immediate preventative action. That loophole is now closing, thanks to a group called World Weather Attribution. They are the leading practitioners of a relatively new discipline known as attribution science. This visualization represents how attribution science calculates responsibility. On one side, we have observational data from our current reality. On the other, scientists build a simulated control model of the Earth, governed strictly by pre-industrial data baselines, where human-driven climate change never occurred. Researchers run data from the current weather event through both scenarios side by side. By watching how temperatures spike in both models simultaneously, they can see if a disaster of this magnitude could even physically exist in a world untouched by human emissions. By mathematically isolating human impact, this process acts as a real-time scientific autopsy. It separates natural weather variations from unnatural, human-made disasters. When investigators applied this methodology to the current European heat wave, they explicitly tested for natural ocean atmospheric variations, including the El Niño Southern Oscillation. The data quickly ruled it out as the primary driver. This graph tracks the probability of extreme heat events. Compared to the historic European heat wave of 2003, the data shows that extreme daytime peak temperatures are now 10 times more likely to occur today. The risk is even higher after the sun goes down. Extreme overnight temperatures, the ones that prevent the human body from cooling and recovering, are now almost 100 times more likely than in the past. Contrast those statistics with the historical baseline. According to the data, the specific conditions suffocating Europe right now would have been mathematically and virtually impossible just 50 years ago. The math leaves no room for natural alibis. The data unequivocally identifies the driver. This event is being sustained entirely by climate change. Attribution science has successfully removed the ambiguity of climate disasters, providing high-confidence statistical proof in real time. Yet global political will is moving in the opposite direction. In 2015, world leaders made a unified commitment to contain the global temperature rise to within 1.5 or 2 degrees. Today, governments are quietly giving up on those targets, treating them as if they are already beyond reach. You can see this retreat playing out at the highest levels of international diplomacy. At recent high-level meetings like the G7, climate change mitigation has been actively downgraded or dropped from the top of the agenda. Instead of prevention, leaders are resigning themselves to a strategy of adaptation, building for a hotter world. But scientists warn that adaptation has strict physical limits. You cannot simply adapt to an environment that exceeds the human body's capacity to cool itself. The scientific community has identified the specific driver behind this crisis in record time. The barrier to surviving the next heat wave is no longer a lack of data, it is a failure to act on it.